welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello, everybody. This is Evelyn Hershkowitz, Reader Services Librarian from the Syosset Public Library. This is the Turn the Page podcast. And today we are so fortunate to have with us Allison Pataki. Allison's new book is called Finding Margaret Fuller. It comes out on March 19th, which is around the corner, which is crazy. How did this time fly so fast? So I'm just going to read a little bit about Allison so you know who she is. She's the New York Times bestselling author of Finding Margaret Fuller, The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post, The Queen's Fortune, The Trader's Wife, The Accidental Empress, CC Empress of Her Own, Where the Light Falls, as well as the nonfiction memoir Beauty in the Broken Places, and 2 children's books, Nellie Takes New York and Poppy Takes Paris. Allison's novels have been translated into 20 languages. A former news writer and producer, Allison has written for the New York Times, ABC News, the Huffington Post, USA Today, Fox News, and other outlets. She's appeared on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, Good Day New York, Good Day Chicago, and MSNBC's Morning Joe. Allison graduated from Yale University with a major in English and spent several years in journalism before switching to fiction writing. A member of the Historical Novel Society, Allison lives in New York with her husband and family. Allison, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thrilled to be here. And to your point of how are we already looking at March? It's Women's History Month. So happy Women's History Month.
So that's a great month to put this book out. So the book we're talking about is Finding Margaret Fuller. I've never heard of Margaret Fuller, but now that I've read about her, your book is absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm so interested in finding out more about her. Tell us why you picked Margaret Fuller to write about.
Absolutely. I love it when I start with readers from a place of them having no idea what the name means or who the individual was, because that is generally how I start my process as well, as I uncover this fascinating woman whose name I didn't know, whose history I didn't know, and then I just become obsessed with her, and I just know that I've met my next heroine, and I've met the subject of my next book. So that is exactly how it happened with Margaret. I was stuck inside on a rainy Memorial Day weekend years ago after I had just had my baby, and my mother-in-law was visiting, and she gave me this book called American Bloomsbury, which was about the genius cluster of Concord, Massachusetts during the 19th century. This was Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Louisa May Alcott, Herman Melville, and all these giants of American history and literature that we all grow up reading, we all know about. And there was one character in this book, this nonfiction book, Margaret Fuller, who Ralph Waldo Emerson described as the radiant heart and fiery genius at the center of their circle. And as I read about her life story, and I read about the life story of these other men and women who were writing together, living together, falling in and out of love with one another, flirting with one another, friends with one another, competitors, Margaret Fuller was just the most interesting one of all. She jumped off the page as this colorful, brazen, bold, trailblazing leading lady. And I just thought, the story behind the story here is so good. How did I not know her name? I have got to learn more about this woman. So that's what I did. And I just became obsessed with her life. And I feel like it's a pretty common refrain to hear what you said, which is that you weren't familiar with her name. She has been sort of sidelined off center stage as history has got, as history and time have progressed. But I think it's time to put her center stage. And I think her story is just so meaningful, inspiring, dramatic, juicy, and important for us all to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your research like? There's so much information about her out there.
Absolutely. So it started in Concord. My research is always a big push up front. Before I start writing, this is just collecting the raw material, collecting the data that is going to serve as inspiration for the story. So I went to Concord, and it's an incredible place because you have this one little stretch of country lane where Ralph Waldo Emerson was living in this home called Bush Upstairs, his handyman was living, Henry David Thoreau. Just up the lane, the boisterous neighbors, the Alcotts, with their brilliant little daughter, Louisa May, running around, 4 girls, just as we know if we've read Little Women. And then up the road in the other direction, you have Nathaniel Hawthorne, and you've got Herman Melville coming to visit, and you've got Poe and Walt Whitman, and just this incredible time of American culture and history and letters. And so Margaret Fuller stayed for quite a while in Concord in this group of friends. And so I just retraced her footsteps. I dug into the context of their time there together. This is when you have Thoreau moving out to Walden Pond, and you have Hawthorne writing the Scarlet Letter. Margaret Fuller was his inspiration for Hester
Right. I mean,
Prynne.
that's just amazing. Amazing
Yeah.
stuff.
When
Wow.
Sophia Hawthorne, Nathaniel Hawthorne's wife, read the first finished draft of the Scarlet Letter, she took to bed for the rest of the day with a headache because she knew
He
that the
loved her.
sultry leading lady was not her. It was
Right.
Margaret Fuller.
A lot of them had a crush on her.
Exactly. Yeah,
They
it was
really
very
did.
dramatic. It was very juicy. Anyone who thinks that history is boring, oh my goodness, history is the
Yeah.
furthest thing from boring.
It's just funny though how different times are, the way they had their crush on her, but yet nobody really did anything about it. Like it was it wasn't scandalous at all. It was just very mellow. But it was
Yeah, well,
interesting.
it was also, for instance, with Margaret, there was this love triangle between Margaret, Hawthorne, and Emerson.
Mhm.
It was very much a meeting of the minds, and Margaret and Emerson almost felt like they were soulmates in the sense that they connected on this higher level. Perhaps there was that physical lust, and I read an interesting quote while researching, to paraphrase, the only thing more powerful than lust acted on is lust denied. And I think that was very much the case here.
Mhm.
But they also saw themselves as soulmates. And Hawthorne told people that Emerson thought of Margaret Fuller almost as a goddess. And he told her she's the one woman in the world worth considering. There was this element of like putting her on this pedestal because she was so brilliant, singular, and unique. And that made her incredibly alluring and
Mhm.
attractive and enticing to these men. She was almost a little bit dangerous to them.
But she never was, with women not allowed to go to college back then?
So Margaret Fuller was the first woman who was permitted to study at Harvard. And that was a huge moment for her and for women everywhere because it happened later in life. It happened much later in Margaret's life. When Margaret was of college age, she would not have been permitted to go to Harvard. It was closed to females. So what Margaret would do, because she grew up in Cambridge, right a stone's throw from the Harvard campus, she would post up outside the gates of the Harvard campus and just debate the young men, debate the young students. And word got out that the Fuller girl was beating all these Harvard lads in debates. And it was, again, very scandalous. And it was sort of off-putting to men that she was so brilliant and that she was so unabashedly brilliant, not afraid to use her mind. It was almost offensive in her time. And so she broke boundaries at every step of her life, as you'll see in this book, whether it's studying at Harvard or speaking and hosting these salons for young women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was a trailblazer for that, becoming one of the first female correspondents working for Horace Greeley, where she was covering Frederick Douglass and Beethoven and Karl Marx, becoming the editor of the Dial magazine, going overseas by herself and serving as the first female foreign war correspondent, taking a lover in Rome and having a child, an international scandal. So Margaret kind of flouted conventions every step of the way, and that's what makes her such a good story.
Right, absolutely, a great story. Now, I was reading that there was a book that came out about her that was a Pulitzer Prize winning biography.
Yes.
Did
yes.
you use that as part of your
Absolutely.
research?
Yes, absolutely. So I include in the back of my book, there are so many brilliant books about Margaret Fuller. And what I really wanted to do is write a novel. I wanted to write historical fiction because I wanted it to be this immersive, lush, transportive experience for readers where readers get to enter into these scenes, and I'm pulling directly from the history, direct quotes, the setting, the context. The history is the bones of the story, but what I want to do is then go in and put on the flesh and flesh out these scenes and the dialogue and the tension and the way it might have felt to inhabit this world and go along on this journey with Margaret Fuller. So I love historical fiction for that reason, because I hope if I do it right, I'm packing the dual punch of maybe offering an educational experience, but also an entertaining experience. I want it to be educational, but also entertaining.
Yeah, well, Publishers Weekly gave it a starred review. And they say Pataki's star-studded and gripping account is full of lush details about the life of an overlooked contributor to transcendentalism and women's right. This is one to savor. That is a great review. What a beautiful review.
I was so stunned and thrilled to get that, because I mean, it was a daunting experience to take on Margaret Fuller as a subject, just because she was on her own level in terms of genius, brilliance. Like one of her contemporary reviewers said, I can read Hegel in the original German. I can read Dante in the original Italian. I'm still working on Margaret Fuller in the original English. Like she had an incredible mind.
Yeah. And then also Entertainment Weekly has it as one of the most anticipated 2024 reads. So you've got lots of great reviews and good reads. People who've read it are loving it. Do you read your reviews?
I do. Absolutely. I'm human. I'm curious. I think we all do it. And this is book 10 for me. Finding Margaret Fuller is book 10. And in the beginning, I would take every review to heart, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. Now I can have a little more of, I guess you could just say I've developed a thicker skin, because it's so subjective. And if my book's not for everyone, that's fine. Hopefully my book resonates with readers, and I'm always thrilled and thankful for every single positive review, but I don't let the negative reviews to get to me so much, just because I will sometimes read books that everyone in the country apparently loves, and it just doesn't connect with me. It's a subjective experience. One thing that's a little bit weird is when reviewers are writing a scathing review and they tag you because they almost are going out of their way to make sure you see it. That I find a little confusing, but I don't mind, obviously, reviews that run the whole gamut of positive to negative.
Yeah, no, that's just mean. You just should not do that. Yeah, no reason for that whatsoever. I think your research was just brilliant. I mean, everything about this book is just, I was in Concord, Mass once. My father had cousins that lived there, but we didn't do any of the literary things. I remember going to like a battleground or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you have the shot heard round the world, the battles of Lexington and Concord.
Right.
Concord is where it happened. So it was in a farmer's orchard. And of course, the land was Emerson family land, as was the Walden Pond. Emerson kind of looms large over Concord still to this day, but I would suggest another visit, because
of course,
so full of history.
I missed out on so much history and great information. I guess that wasn't where my parents were.
Yeah. Well, it's never too late to go back and visit.
Yeah,
You know what, I had this strong sense, because Concord is a town that really venerates and honors its history, everything from the American Revolution up to this moment in time where the transcendentalists were living there. Emerson, Thoreau, Alcott, and of course, Margaret Fuller. But so still to this day, when you go back, stores are named after them, roads are named after them. If you stay in an inn or a B&B, the suites will be named after them. You can go to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery and see they are all resting for all of eternity together right next to each other.
Oh my gosh,
they did in life, but not Margaret. Margaret is not there. Obviously, Margaret's body, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but Margaret didn't make it back to Concord. But even if she had, I don't think she would have been buried in Concord. She moved on. So you go there and you get the sense the gang is all here except Margaret. And that is how it felt to me as it was in her life too. She was always a bit of an outsider. In Concord, she eventually grew tired of the interpersonal drama, the love triangles, the tension, and the poetry and philosophy. She wanted to get her hands dirty with the real gritty work of life
Mhm.
and making the world a better place and moving humanity forward. That's why she left Concord and went to New York, and then ultimately went to London, and then Paris, and then Rome,
Yeah.
and participated in the Roman Revolution. She was a doer while also being an incredible thinker. And so she said, the problem with Concord is that it's lacking in discord. And she made that little pun, but I think that's right. So if you go to Concord, you go into the Emerson House, which is a museum, exactly how the Emerson family lived there. And her bedroom, which was her guest room, the Red Room, which is many a scandalous scene if you read the book, is now like the gift shop. So
Oh,
time
okay.
has sort of moved on, and in some ways left Margaret in the shadows. And I really wanted to pull her out of those shadows and shine the light on her story, because it's such a worthy story. So that's what Finding Margaret Fuller is. That's what I'm hoping to do.
You do it beautifully. I mean, I think your writing is just fabulous. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
You know, like I've said, I didn't know who she was. Now I do. And because of you, the writing is just, it just jumps off the page. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
I so enjoyed reading it.
That means so much. Thank you very much.
And
Coming
like I
from
said,
you.
I will be putting it in the hands of all of my historical fiction patrons, those that love
Oh,
historical fiction. And I
great.
just want to let all of our listeners know it will be available on Overdrive March 19th, and we'll also have the print copy here at the library. So if you're interested, please give us a call and we'll be happy to put it on hold for you. So
And very, very meaningful New York history in this book. There's
Mhm.
you could make the case that some of Margaret's happiest times were the times where she was in New York. And then, as you and I said, the ending all comes to a head.
Yeah,
New
no,
York, just a stone's throw from where you are.
yes,
So
very
it
close.
will hopefully resonate with your readers.
Absolutely, it certainly will. Now, I know we're here to talk about Finding Margaret Fuller, but I have to talk about The Magnificent Lives of Marjorie Post. Because, like I said, that was one of my absolute favorite books last year. I did a book discussion on it. I had more people at that discussion than we've had in the longest time.
Oh,
And it
great.
wasn't because of me, it was because of you. It was
Thank
your
you.
fabulous book. Of course, we all know Marjorie Post was living here on Long Island for quite a while. She had Post, which is now the college, right
Yes.
here. And we all, you know,
Look
we
at my
read.
water bottle. Look at my water
Oh,
bottle.
wow, you have the LIU. Yep.
Yep. Post, GW Post campus.
Yeah.
Margaret was a Gold Coast girl. I mean,
Yeah.
Marjorie was a Gold Coast.
Marjorie, yeah, your names are very similar, Marjorie and
Yeah.
Margaret. But that book was just so fabulous. I absolutely loved it. And there's nobody here that hasn't loved it. And right now I have a senior group doing it as a book discussion. So, and if
Yeah.
you look, this is crazy. If you look at, we have what's called LI Link, which is all Long Island libraries. Every copy of the book is out. Every single copy of your book is out in the library.
That's the best.
I can't even get any more large print copies, of which I do need some more. But it's crazy. That book is just still doing so well. So congratulations
Wow.
on that
Thank
one.
you to your readers for the continued support. It's
Yeah.
spreading the word.
It's
I just actually got the news yesterday from my publisher that it just went back to its 8th reprinting.
Oh my
So
gosh,
it's still
congratulations.
printing. So hopefully some of those will be large print copies for you.
Yeah, that would be nice because I
If
do have,
not, let me know. And
yeah,
I can
no, it's
look
fine. I
into it.
mean, I ordered as many as I could from our Nassau libraries. And then what I normally do is once we get all the Nassau books, I try to get the Suffolks all gone. Nothing's available right now.
Oh, that's great. Thank
Yeah,
you
it
for
is.
looking
It's
for
amazing. The book,
readers.
that book just resonates with our readers so much. It really does. So
You. And I think that book, like Finding Margaret Fuller, just is a case in point, proving that history provides the best raw material for drama and inspiration, and stories can really connect us in that way. And I think that every time I land on one of these women like Marjorie Post or Margaret Fuller, I feel so lucky and sort of dubious that their stories haven't been told yet in novels, and that I get to do it. And then I fall in love with these women and they sort of take up residence in my head, and then I get to write about them and then talk about them. So I'm so
how,
thankful to the readers that give them
yeah.
their life.
How long does it take you to write a book?
So Marjorie took me 6 years. That was my hardest, just because there was so much raw material and it was such recent history. So it was very well documented. Margaret Fuller was 3 years. It was a
Wow,
3 year.
okay.
Yeah, so somewhere between 2 to 6. This is my 10th book, so every single one has been a different experience.
Mhm.
But this one, finding Margaret Fuller, was a 3 year process.
Did you always want to be an author? Was that right from
I
you?
always loved stories. I always loved history. I always got lost in stories in my head and gravitated towards various activities that were different forms of storytelling. When I graduated college, I thought I wanted to write news, journalism. So I went into journalism, which is writing, just a very different form of writing. So after several years of that, I realized I was in the wrong line of work and that I really wanted to be writing longer form novels and fiction specifically. So I shifted gears there, but I did always want to write and tell stories. And I've always been interested in learning other people's stories, just in different ways.
Do you have a whole list of famous women that you want to write about?
I do. And it's always pretty clear to me. It's always a pretty intuitive gut thing that I know when I've met my next woman.
Mhm.
And I'll tell my husband, I've been bitten. I've been bitten. This story gets its hooks in me, and it's not an option. It's a compulsion. I've got to write this story. Like, she's nagging me in my head to like get it down on paper. So not nagging, I shouldn't say, but just she's alive. I want to get it out. So then I'll have a list of women to revisit once I've moved in the queue and I've finished one. Then because once I start the research process and I go deep and I do a deep dive, like I said, like the woman becomes real to me, comes to life, and I've got to be ready to write. So I almost can't pump the gas until I'm really ready to go.
Are you going on a book tour for this one?
Yeah, I will be all over the country. So
Wow.
I will start out in the Northeast. I will head to the Boston, Massachusetts area. I will be up and down New England. Then I'll go up and down the Southeast. And then eventually I'll make it out to California. And I'll
Wow.
visit
That's so
more
great.
virtual opportunities as well to connect with readers. People can find me on Instagram or my website. So yeah, I'm really thrilled. There's a lot of enthusiasm for this book.
That's great. Did you have a tour from Marjorie Post
I
also?
did. You know what is so interesting? My book on Desiree Clary, The Queen's Fortune, came out in February of 2020.
Oh,
So I was at these big book events, probably closer to getting COVID at that point than I would
right,
be, the next month.
right.
But I did that Desiree launch. Then the world shut down for years. And then 2 years later, in February of 22, that's when Marjorie came out, Marjorie Post. And that was kind of at the tail end when everyone was vaccinated and we were starting in-person events again. So my books kind of bookended COVID. And now in-person events are totally back and there's a
Right.
lot of enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, great. Are you going to be out on Long Island at all? Do you have anything planned?
I was actually out at Post campus a few months ago. I did a book event
Oh,
with Theodore's Books
oh, you
at
did? Okay.
FIU. And I hope to get back there soon. Yeah, it was a
Okay. Oh,
wonderful
that's fun.
event. It was a beautiful late August, I want to say, or maybe even early September. It was like right before Labor Day. I was
Did you
out there,
talk about finding Margaret Fuller or
talked about Marjorie Post.
Marjorie
Yeah,
Post, of course. Yes. Oh, I wish I had gone to that. I'm sorry I missed it. I would have loved that.
hopefully there'll be another
Well,
one.
hopefully if you come back, I will definitely look forward to seeing you there. That would be wonderful.
Exactly.
Absolutely wonderful. So what are you working on now?
So I'm going to be in hardcore launch mode for the next couple months, talking to readers about Margaret Fuller. And then
Okay.
when I get back and things settle a little bit, I've got two things I'm super excited. I'm working on a children's book project because I've written the two children's books. Nellie Takes New York and Poppy Takes Paris. I'm excited for that. And then I also have my next leading lady, again, an American. This one is 20th century, and I cannot wait to share with readers more about what that book will be. But that one's all set. I'm working on that one too.
Oh, wow. You're so busy.
Yeah, I keep busy. I keep busy. It's like the adage, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So I enjoy doing it.
That's just wonderful. Good for you. And keep doing it because here in Syosset, we love you.
Thank you so
We love
much.
your books. We love your writing. I highly recommend Finding Margaret Fuller. Her life is fascinating and interesting. And you know what? I hate to say that I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know anything about what happened in Rome back then.
Yeah.
I didn't, I thought Italy was always a country that was together. I had no idea. I don't know where I was in history class, but they didn't teach us that.
Exactly. That's why I love historical fiction.
No, I really don't think they taught us anything about that. I think it was just totally skipped over. So
Yeah.
was very happy to learn all that information, and I was so happy for Margaret Fuller that she found somebody.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, everybody deserves to be loved, and
Talk about a passionate love affair.
yeah,
We will let your readers find out what happens.
no, I was
How
very
she inspired the character of Hester Prynne.
I was very, very happy for her. I really was. I thought that was great. It was
Oh, good. Good.
great
Yeah.
book. I don't want to give anything away. Just pick it up, read the book. You're gonna love it.
Thank you.
So I think we'll end these, turn the page, and I really thank Allison Pataki so much for being with us. Good luck on your tour,
Thank you.
and hopefully the book does just as well as Marjorie Post because it deserves to. It was a fascinating story. And
Thank you so
written
much.
so well. I mean, your writing is just, it's so beautiful. It really is.
I will tell you, and I say this every time I speak, I'm not just saying it because of the present company, but if a bookseller tells me they love my book, I'm so thrilled to hear it. If a publisher or reader tells me they love my book, I'm so thrilled to hear it. But when it means the most is when it comes from librarians, because
Oh,
you
thank
are
you.
the gatekeepers of our reading culture. And so I appreciate it so much. I'm so thankful to you. I'm thankful to your readers. I'm thankful that book clubs bring people together over books and stories, especially stories about strong women, now that we're looking at Women's History Month. And I'm just thrilled that people read my books so that I can continue to write them.
Well, we're glad you do, and keep on going. And I'm sure we'll do this one as a book discussion here also
Right.
eventually. We can't do it when it's brand new because it's too hard to get all the copies. But like I
Yeah.
said, even Marjorie Post right now, I'm having a hard time getting all the copies. So it's living on. So I thank you for bringing these women to our attention and for writing them so beautifully. So thank you, Allison. I wish you
Happy
well.
reading. I wish you
Yeah.
well.
And thank you so much for being here with us. So we're going to close this chapter of Turn the Page, and thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you. And I hope all of our readers pick up Finding Margaret. I see, I'm doing it too. I'm mixing up the two women. Finding Margaret Fuller by Allison Pataki. So thank you, Allison.
Thanks so much.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
You. Bye.
Bye-bye.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.